Well, g'day there again. It's Mark here from Nomad Stays. Just bringing you my weekly update on the future of travel. I'm just going to start off today with a little bit of a look at the environment I'm in. I'm here with my trusty Chief Happiness Officer, Dakar, who you've met before. Dakar's just out there exploring, but we're just on a pathway in the rain, and all the flowers come out, the colours looking brilliant. Look at all these different shades of green, berries popping up on different trees. Certainly a hive of activity and colour and texture and smells. There's all sorts of creatures obviously been around here. Dakar's a bit of a tracker, as you've seen, and anyway, we're really enjoying our time in the French Alps. You can see a little bit of cloud out there on the tops of the hills, and more of these beautiful forests. Just been reading about some of the forests, the differences between the north and the south of the Alps in Europe. And literally how the French Alps are the single largest skiing area in the world, which is obviously great during the winter months. But now, as we're into summer, it's all turning into summer outdoor sports, which are taking off. As you no doubt have been reading, any sports that are got a lot of social distancing are very, very popular. Golf has returned as a sport. It was been on the decline for some time, and now it's back on again because people can get some exercise, some fresh air, some sunshine, and get out and enjoy themselves without having to be in close confines. So confidence is starting to return to some parts of the world. The European Union, many of the internal borders have been opening up in the last few days. A few more coming up in the next couple of weeks. Rules are still a little bit sketchy. The EU Commission has got a wonderful tool to help plot your cross-border routes and whether you've got quarantining or not. If you haven't seen it, it's there on our page. I think we posted it yesterday or the day before. And so there's a lot of opportunity opening up in Europe for cross-border travel. Over on the other side of the world, Australia and New Zealand, they're still in lockdown, and according to the Australian Minister just overnight, our time, it looks like Australia will remain closed. The international borders will remain closed for the rest of this year, the rest of this calendar year, which is obviously going to hurt a lot of businesses. Anyway, the state of the economy is part of what we're talking about today. So we're seeing a good amount of tourism traffic starting to kick on within France. We're expecting the European markets will continue to open up. Cross-border travel will return. There's a level of concern, I guess, about where people are going to. We're hearing a lot of stories from the hostels and things that we list, how the concentrated environments of hostels are being frowned upon a little. So we're seeing some reconfigurations kicking into the hostel market. Over in the US, very patchy still. Internally, things are still mixed. A conversation last night with people on the West Coast in California. Still very much a lot of lockdown arrangements over there, and over on the East Coast, things are a lot freer. So a bit patchy. Florida looking pretty good from a tourism perspective in the northern summer this year. Masses of people heading to New York? Probably not for quite some time. But the other thing that's concerning a lot of the American travellers, which you again may have been reading about, is that they're concerned that if they left the country, whether they would get equivalent healthcare, whether they would get healthcare as good as what they can get at home should they get sick. So this is setting expectations within the US that international traffic will remain very quiet for some time, even when and if the borders open. So, once the huge numbers of flights kick in between the US and Europe again, it might be a while before the average leisure tourist takes that jaunt over to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, for instance. Anyway, so good news. great that things are opening up. Isolation is disappearing for a lot of us, and we can get back to some of the bigger issues. So the economy starts playing on our mind again. The US has announced, for instance, 40 million listed on their unemployed register. A hell of a lot of people. And at the same time, there's been a great new report out by McKinsey's, the huge consulting company, talking about at least 10 years worth of labour shortage in Europe. You sort of say, how can that be? 40 million unemployed Americans today, a lot of the economy in Europe badly damaged by the isolations. How can there be a labour shortage? When it doesn't sound right, so I delved into the report and was talking largely about the mismatch of skills. It's a talent shortage, not a quantity of people shortage. So the talent that is required is a lot more of this STEM, science, technology, engineering, manufacturing, modern manufacturing and things like that. People to control and plug in the automatic door openers at the hotels, to have the software systems that are doing your checkouts and bookings and things like that to be automated. The ordering in restaurants and cafes from the table, things like that. Not particularly high tech, but higher tech than a lot of people would have been used to, particularly older people who have not used that tech too much. Now, I'm in that sort of older age group myself, but I've been lucky that I spend most of my life in the tech industry, so tech doesn't worry me. Picking up new skills is something okay for me, but I know a lot of my compatriots are still quite happy with pen and paper and a whiteboard and a classroom to talk and conference room to discuss about. But those days are fast disappearing, and people are discovering that they've got to learn these new tools. How to use Zoom, which may be easy for some people, is very complex for others, let alone an online electronic whiteboard or a Trello or the myriad of other tools out there that people are starting to use in their remote environments. So people that are skilled in using modern technology, modern tools that get the job done faster than the old way, they're in short supply and are expected to remain that way for some time. So you might be a founder or a freelancer. You're out there hustling for clients. And there's people expanding. We hire a range of people. We've got a range of teammates spread around the world, and we put out ads every now and then. It's quite amazing how poorly the responses are that we get in. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about how you are responding to offers or for invitations to submit some sort of proposal or apply for a job. We did another one recently. It was just looking for a bit of a technical person to help out with one of the deeper tech functions of our website. And I think I got, in the last 4 or 5 days, I've got about 25 or 30 responses. Now, I went through over half of them and they were lucky to get more than 1 second of my attention. They were just so poorly written and completely missed the point that we were asking for. We detailed the skills we wanted, the technologies we used, and what was expected to happen when you applied for a job. And so I wanted to talk about some of the mistakes that people have been making from an employer's point of view. And if you're an employer, you might have had some of these issues as well. So I'll give you an example. This was a tech role we're looking for and revolved around Google Maps and Microsoft SQL as a database. So, okay, we're looking for somebody with those skills. We're looking for somebody that's done something similar. So we wrote a small spec about that. And we started getting these applications, and not just the typical subcontinent applications, which dominate a lot of these platforms, these job platforms, but from all around the world. And you sort of get this stuff that says, hi, I'm a full stack developer with 10 years experience in, and then they start listing off everything they've done for the last 10 years. And the first 3 or 4 items were not even the ones we're looking for. Hi, I'm a full stack developer, expert in Mongo database and PHP and native Angular, React or whatever. Things that we don't need. Whooshka, on the side. If they haven't been able to read the job spec and present themselves initially as having the skills or experience in that manner, they were just going to go into the reject list straight away. So the vast majority of those applications went into that. The next lot were a little bit better. They had the right skills. Then we started looking at their reference points. Mistake number 2. Here's a reference point. Okay, we can't get to it. It needs a password. You didn't bother sending us the password. Oh, okay. So very basic things. Now, it's a mindset attitude that maybe we need to think a little bit more about. In the days when there are lots of jobs locally down the road, or your friends or family introduce you to somebody looking for a role, that was good because you got a warm introduction. You came pre-qualified as having the right attitude or some skills that somebody's recommended you. When you're cold calling, however, there is that level of trust is not there. So you need to build that up, and you can build that up quite quickly with the right sort of attitude. So if we're balancing out this issue where on one side we've got a shortage of labour, on the other side we've got a surplus of people, what's going through the employer's mind is, I need this job done, I need somebody to help me, and I need it done as fast or as economically as possible, or accurate, whatever their criteria are. So the employer is looking for somebody that will help them. Yet how many job applications actually say, hi, I can help you with X, Y and Z. I've done it before, I know how to solve it. Here's my reference points. Can we have a conversation? I get almost nothing like that. Had one this week, very nice conversation we had with a fellow founder who was pitching his software development services. Now, I knew he was going to pitch it, but it's not the way he approached us. He approached us with examples of great websites he had seen in our industry and wanted to talk to me about whether I wanted to replicate some of what I'd seen in others onto our site. Really nice, helpful stuff. We looked into these sites, we did an online screen sharing, we spoke for about an hour, and it really gave me a lot of benefit. At the same time, I could return the compliment with some information to help this guy with his own business. Now we haven't bought his services, we're not in the market for his services right away. Well, we might be in 6 months, and if we're going to drop, could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're going to drop that sort of money. We want to build up a relationship with somebody that we know is going to help us. So again, this guy's approach, really good approach. Here, I'm here to help you. I want to give you some suggestions, some ideas, something to think about as you're going through this process. Compare that to somebody who says, hi, I'm looking for a job. I've done this for the last 10 years. Okay, well, sorry, to be black and white, I'm not here to employ everybody in the world. I've got a job to be done, and I've got to make my business successful so that I can actually employ more people. So again, I'm looking for somebody to help as an employer with my employer's hat on. So as a freelancer, particularly if you're a new freelancer in the game, you might want to be thinking about how you can help somebody. Now, that can be a little bit difficult too, because you may not have that much confidence. You've got to get over that. You've got to present yourself as confident. You also need to have a bit of an understanding of the marketplace. If there's 400 people in your town that do something similar to you, you probably expect that there's a lot more people in the world offering those services. So maybe it's time to niche and specialise. We've been saying through our business consultancy for nearly 20 years now that the answer to great business in an internet connected world is about niching. You can be an expert in something and you will find markets all around the world for exactly that sort of thing. So saying you're an expert social media manager of a Facebook page and group, well, that's great. But again, how many people approach you each day? I probably get 10 or 15. I don't even run the marketing at Nomad Stays. So imagine what Linda gets on the marketing side. Just saying that you've got this experience isn't going to cut it because it's too competitive. You want to stand out from that a little bit more. Again, not much different to what you would have done offline or from home, except you probably had a bigger support network around you that could do the warm introductions. So that leads me to another point about how are you surrounding yourself with networks? Are you using the contacts you've made at the co-working spaces? Are you plugging in and working those networks on those Slack groups, those Telegram groups, those WhatsApp groups, all those Facebook groups that you're a member of? Are you using your LinkedIn network? Or are you just sending a semi-spammy note that says, hi, I can do this sort of thing for you if you're interested? So maybe just think about rephrasing some of that stuff. You don't need to drop off the intensity, although being a bit more targeted can bring better results. But just think about it from the other person's point of view, from the employer's point of view. Because they're thinking about, oh, I've got a problem and I need it solved. Who can I get to help me? And if you jump into that ability to help them, great. You've probably got you probably made a short list at least. Whether you get employed, hired for the job, well, there's other factors that kick in after that. But at least get yourself on the short list. Now, it's not hard to pick up a couple of thousand people on LinkedIn these days. Now, 2,000 people is pretty hard to manage in your own brain. I think the stats over the years have showed that most people run contact lists of around 800 to 1,000 people. That's enough to sort of have a close-knit group and some members, some colleagues, some connections that are a bit further away that might provide some business. And being in contact and sharing with them what's happening, what's new, what you're focusing on, that's always a great way just to remind people that you exist. And if you start niching your message around your speciality, well, suddenly you might stand out and you get that call that just came out of the blue that says, I need some help with X, are you available? It's the equivalent of a warm introduction by a family friend when you were getting your first job sometime in the past. So think about that. Think about grabbing yourself some time to review the marketplace, what other people are saying, and just think about how you're going to put a new set of clothes on for the new era. How are you going to present yourself as a dynamic, helpful person? That's all I'm going to say on the matter of for that. I know that people have been struggling with jobs. There is quite a lot of work around the world. I know newspapers are talking about doom and gloom. There's some reports, for instance, that the economy in Europe may drop as much as 11% this financial year. May sound awful, but it still means 89% of the business that was being done last year is still being done this year. There's still the vast majority of businesses that are sitting there working away and still have the same challenges of how to learn AI, how to deal with robotics, legislation, how to grow their markets, how to find new customers, how to reinvigorate their product teams. They've got the same challenges. They're spending the same amount of money, if not more in some instances. So there's a lot of economy out there, and the more dynamic ones, they're always going to be looking for new innovation. So keep an eye on that. Borders are open in Europe. Might be a little bit easier to go and have a face-to-face meeting now compared to the last few months, and let alone the fact that everybody's gone online and doing video conferencing meetings. It's never been a better time to be a digital nomad. I'm going to leave it there today and look forward to you enjoying the summer, maybe here in the French Alps, in this magnificent district. Maybe we'll see you somewhere else. Cheers for now.